meeting for today. And I see that we need to do the flag salute. I think I'll lead the flag salute. So if everybody would please rise and we can do the flag salute. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Was there anything? Was there anything to report from the? No. We need the approval of the agenda first. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda minus item 8D.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure. Did you say 8D or 8B?
D.
D as in dog. Okay, 8D as in dog. I thought I heard B. Okay, and I got a second from Mrs. Wells? Oh, from
Dr.
Mrs. Stern? Okay, thank you very much. Call for the motion then. Mrs. Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes. By the way, before we go on, I would like to mention that Mrs. Walker-Schuman and our student board member Eli Raymer are both attending the meeting virtually, and so that it's on the record. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, we have one person who, oh wait, Dr. Breggy, we have anything on closed session?
President Marcus, we did not have any action in closed session this evening.
Thank you. Okay, the agenda hearing period, I have believe that we have one person who would like to make a comment. Is she present? Mrs. Hollander, Daphne Hollander, you're on. I think you're muted right now. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Dear board members and Dr. Brady, the board has done an excellent job in anticipation and planning for different scenarios throughout this pandemic. And in light of the fact that we are now hearing that one or more vaccines may receive full FDA approval in the coming months, it's important for the board to share with the community what are the plans or what discussions have taken place thus far. And these are my questions. Whether there will be a mandate for a COVID vaccine for all high school students. If it's not required for high school, would a COVID vaccine be mandatory for certain activities at the high school? If so, which ones? Whether those who have not been vaccinated will be placed into separate classrooms or asked to Zoom remotely for those classes? These are important questions whose answers should be addressed at the board meeting and distributed to all parents as part of a questions and answers prior to orientation. Thank you so much for your attention to this important matter.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Berge?
And Dr. Hollander, I will be addressing your questions in my superintendent's report, which shouldn't be too long tonight.
Okay. All right. So I believe we'll move right along. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with some items withdrawn?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar minus items 8G and 8R.
Second.
Who said was the second?
Ms. Walker.
Ms. Walker-Schuman.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman, thank you very much. Wait, I think 8G and HR?
8R, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll call for the motion for the approval of the calendar minus those two items. Dr. Stern, board member, Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Ms. Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
And Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, thank you very much. It passes 6-0. Okay, the item that I wanted to pull was 8G. I had a question about the wording of it, and I would like to have that just clarified because it says that they are going to fix the computers that were just hurt or in any way not made usable in 21-22, but that's next year, and I questioned how they could know about it if they were last year or what's going on.
So can I make a motion to put it on the floor for discussion, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll move to approve Ari Jones Educational Solutions, Dell Latitude 3300 and 3490 screen repair service.
Okay, and I have a second.
I'll second.
Who is that? I couldn't. Is that
Tristan.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Okay.
Thank you.
President Marcus, members of the board, these repairs are for computers that were getting ready for the 21-22 school year. So those were damaged last year, and so the repairs happened over the summer to get ready for the 21-22 school year.
But they were damaged in the past.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It didn't say 20, it just said, okay, that's, okay. So I'll call for the question. Is there any more discussion on that? Anybody want to make a motion to discuss it? Okay, call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. I will move for the ratification of the purchase order report number 2 for 2021-2022.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion was made by Mrs. Marcus, seconded by Mr. Margot, and I believe that there's some discussion on some of the items. Mrs. Wells?
I'm sorry, where are we? I just,
We're on your consent
okay, thank you. That
I need a
is-
motion, though, for that item, right?
You just made it and I
Oh,
seconded it.
Okay.
Not used to doing that.
Do you want me to start?
Okay,
Well, the reason I had questions about this and I wanted to discuss is that we have a purchase order for bond management for security in the amount of $2,800,000 plus, and I wanted to discuss that item on here. My issue with it is that I am not comfortable approving this when I do not have a overview of the security program as of yet. I know that we have plans to have a study session on the security program, but since I've been on the board, I've been asking to get an overview for the budget and the cost to develop the program, and I have not received that information as of yet. So I would like to pull this until we are able to have our study session.
are you wanting to just pull the one item for the $2,850,000?
Yes. I feel uncomfortable at this point when I have requested to meet to go over the security program. And as well, we've had study sessions that have been scheduled and then they've been rescheduled. So up until this point, I've been continuing on with the anticipation that this information will be conveyed. But until we now have this information, I'm just not comfortable approving dollars in this amount.
I would like to add one more thing, that I had a question on this one, and I'd like it clarified, because I think in my questions of this, there was an item on there that they were buying chairs for, it looked like they were buying 3 chairs for $11,000, and what it turns out is they're buying chairs for 3 rooms, and it's 24 chairs, and I would like that to be reflected somehow, so that that's corrected, because I thought that's an exorbitant amount of money for 3 chairs. So I would like that to be clarified. As far as Mrs. Wells's comment, I would like to agree. I've been waiting very patiently to, because I raised a question about the original bond measure issue at $2,250,000, and now I'm seeing something for $2,850,000, and I'm waiting for this study session that we're going to have on the security program, and I'm really kind of puzzled that all of this is coming up right now, and we haven't studied the plan itself. So I personally would like to withhold the $2,850,000 on the purchase order. That would be my vote.
So President Marcus and Wade, we might have to defer to you to this. Is there a way to suspend an item off the PO? Because my understanding is that if it's on the PO, we already approved it in a different form for it to be on the purchase order.
So President Marcus, members of the board, it goes through a requisition process and then it becomes a purchase order. But if it's the board's desire, we can actually suspend the purchase order per your action and not utilize that going forward until you let us know. So we can technically suspend that one item off this purchase order list. Please, we would request you not table the whole purchase order list because
Understood.
business has to go forward. But we could suspend that one item if you direct us to do that.
Does it affect the security program starting up school if this item is suspended?
So no, so the NASDAQ contract and the CSEA contract with our security guards are in place, so it will not have an immediate impact on the starting of school and the security for the school.
Okay.
May I clarify something? That item is for bond management for security.
Correct.
So it's not impacting dollars at all for any of the program per se.
Correct.
It's for the bond management. And that amount, I guess one of the questions that I have is that if that amount is at 2.8 and in the bond budget we had earmarked 2 million, and maybe a little bit more, I don't remember exactly. I don't see how that adds up if we're spending 2.8 just for the bond management of the program for security.
President Marcus, trustees, I think that's part of the discussion that you're going to have in your study session that's coming up.
So this was
Okay.
really a little bit premature then, perhaps.
Right, and I do apologize for the date that keeps moving because I know we've been talking about it for some time. We're really, with a topic like school security, we really wanted everybody to have a seat at the table, and so and to not have somebody virtual, and so we've just every time we picked a date, there's been a conflict. So I do want to apologize for that because I know that this has been we've been waiting to have this session. We were just hoping to have everybody there. We could do our best to try to move it sooner, but then we might have to make some accommodations for some people that are virtual.
Is that now set though for September, right? September 2nd, is that the
I'll be
date?
virtual on September 2nd anyway, because it's my birthday and I'll be out of town. So if that was what was keeping everybody on that date, I'm not gonna be here because it's my birthday. So, but I'll still
Happy
join
early
you.
birthday.
My birthday's the next day. You want to wish me birthday too?
You too.
But I'm going to be here. I go nowhere. Okay. Labor Day babies we were. Okay.
So how do we?
I'm going to call for the
proceed.
question then
No.
minus that one item that's going to be,
You're gonna have to
according-
amend, the motion's already on the table, so you have to amend the motion.
okay, we're going
Get
to
a friendly
amend the
amendment.
motion. So can I have an amended motion, please? You amended the motion to include,
To suspend
This-
whatever that PO number is, I don't have it in front of me. Right, Wade? You would suspend the PO number?
you want the purchase order number? Do we have that number?
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now, President Marcus.
I could get my cursor to,
I can give you that number if it's easier, I've got it up.
okay.
Okay, thanks.
PO 1-64311-990000.
Did you get that, Mr. Margot?
Sure, why do I need
Okay.
it?
Well, since I thought you might be making the
Well,
motion.
I'll make a motion to amend the motion to approve 8R ratification of purchase order report number 2 for 2021-2022.
President Marcus,
say that
members of the
correctly?
board, the number's a little different. I just want to make sure that we do this correctly.
Thank you.
As I put this really far away from myself, the number is actually PO number 220000000026.
Is that 7 zeros?
So do I need to make a motion to amend
No,
the
actually,
PO?
I think Rochelle made the original motion
I
on
made the
this.
original motion.
Oh.
So you have to make the amendment, and whoever made the second, I think, which was me, has to accept your friendly amendment.
Okay, I need the number then. Wait, I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
I'll say it and then you can say it, okay?
Look at that.
You got it. You need me.
Oh, yes, I need you.
I move to amend the motion to ratify the purchase order 8R, number 2, 2021-2022, minus the purchase order
Order.
for
Team Concepts Development Services
Team Concept Development Services
For bond program management for
bond-
security,
For bond management program security,
PO number 22
PO number 22
00 00
00
00
00
00
00
00
00
26.
26.
Do you need to say the amount?
For
It's in the PO.
$2,850,000, I believe.
I think the PO number is enough.
It's connected
It's
to that.
connected.
Okay.
So I'll accept your friendly amendment.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes. It passes 6-0. Okay, that will take care of the consent calendar. Thank you very much. I will now call on you, Dr. Berge, to present your superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Marcus. Let me pull up my screen here. As we begin to get closer to our start date of August 13th, I want to just give a very reflective, very heartfelt thank you to our entire school district community, from our teachers and all of our staff, administrators, our PTA, BHEF, our board certainly, in our city of Beverly Hills, and also our partnerships even with our media. We've really been able to get the word out. And when I look back, I just am just filled with pride at the work that we've done in the past. And I think it's really set us up nicely for starting school again on the 13th, despite some of the challenges that we still have present among us. We've had some time, however, to take in a lot of the information. There's been a lot that's been happening this summer. Ms. Darkins had advised me that there's a new health order that's come out today, just in the last hour or so, that we'll dive into later tonight to see what some of those changes are that might be different from what I'm sharing with you tonight. But we're ready. We're used to this type of feedback from the state, but we've had time to refocus our attention back on our highest priority, which is providing an outstanding and exemplary education in the safest environment possible. I think that we've had some time to re-energize, and we're recommitting to our reopening process for our new school year. So as we've been reporting, we are returning in a full face-to-face instructional model. The independent study program, according to the plan from Governor Newsom, that deadline has passed, and we are looking at making those staffing changes to meet the needs for our students that have already signed up for independent study. We are committed, however, despite some of the challenges with the Delta variant, to keeping transmissions low. We were able to do that throughout the school year and through the summer, and we've committed to doing that starting up again in August. We've had communications. Dr. Horvath and our cabinet have been meeting with our unions to have some ongoing conversation before school starts, and they have met with me and have updated me on those conversations, and I'm really pleased to know that we're all moving in the same direction. Our staff and students 12 or older now have the opportunity to receive vaccinations. We do encourage our students and our families to take advantage of getting a vaccination, which is the highest preventative strategy for the transmission of COVID-19. All of us have a story in BHUSD, and we can continue with that positive trajectory if we still remain focused on keeping everyone as safe as possible and not letting our guard down. So I want to just talk to you a little bit about where we are as a district and as a country. And the best way to do that is to look at the core values that we have that are embedded into our strategic plan. Our academic programming is still our highest priority. To grow to be successful, to excel, is always going to be our highest priority. We want to be able to do that in a very respectful manner. And this is whether it's COVID-19 and people on different sides of where they stand with vaccinations and masks. We want to do that in a respectful way. We want to be accountable to being able to provide the highest level of services in the safest environment. And so we hold our staff and each other accountable for looking at the data, assessing, analyzing the information that we have to make the best decisions for moving forward. The integrity that we have to do this right remains at its highest level going into a new school year as we have had in the past school year. The agility that we have, we've proven as a school community that we are able to adapt and evolve with every health order that has been presented to us. And I'm extremely confident that we're going to be able to do that as we move forward with anything that comes our way, with any new strains or any new surges, that we're going to be able to do that, and we're going to be able to pivot in a very professional and sound way. The collaboration that we've had with our communication, as I've mentioned before, the county has highlighted a lot of our work. They've actually asked for examples of our work about our Ready Together plan. And so we're very proud of the communication that we have provided. And it's been almost 18, 19 months since our very first communication went out. And we've been able to archive, and all of that information is still accessible. And the imagination part is that, we need to keep our spirits up, stay positive. This is the beginning of a new school year. We're very fortunate if you think about it. We're one of the very few kind of industries, if you will, that has an opportunity for a fresh start every single year. And not everybody can say that. So we have a lot to celebrate, to welcome our students back and our teachers and staff back in our classrooms. So just some general information as we move forward. And I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay here. That there are restrictions that have been lifted according to the health order. But we're going to do what we can to maintain a 3-foot distancing when possible. Masks are required for inside environments. Right now they're optional for our outside environments. The self-symptom checks are still really important, that those are done and taken seriously. And for us at our schools, the temperature taking that we do still remains one of the highest ways for us to get data that if somebody isn't feeling well who are entering our schools. The COVID testing that we have, that testing will be available as we move through the school year, so that those opportunities, if there is an issue, if there is a positive case, that we're able to act swiftly and safely. Some of the regulations and requirements are very much the same. When there is someone that is confirmed to be positive, that person, whether it's staff or students, must isolate for 10 days. Our board has been gracious enough to provide us with some staffing to assist when students are going to be out for a period of time, whether they are testing positive or they are considered to be a close contact, that we will be able to provide instruction to that student so that they aren't in an isolation environment without having some instruction and to keep up with what's happening in the classroom. And so we're very fortunate that we're going to have that opportunity, something we didn't have last year. Unvaccinated people who are identified as a close contact with a positive person must quarantine for the 10 days, as I just mentioned. There is, after day 7, if there is a diagnostic specimen that's collected, after day 5, from the date of the last exposure, and there's a test that's negative, that student can come back. asymptomatic persons who are fully vaccinated and who are close to a contact, to a confirmed case, are recommended to test right away for COVID-19 as a result of their exposure, but they're not required to quarantine. And now, as I mentioned, there is a health order that came out while we have been in meetings, so I will have to look at that and review that information. And if anything is changing, we will put that information out to our community. We're still in a position where we love our visitors, but we want to limit the adults that are coming into our schools. So our non-essential visitors, we're strongly discouraging at this time from coming into our school campuses. We still want to provide an environment that is safe, and so those non-essential visitors, we're going to look at another way of being able to do business without a heavy traffic flow into our schools. Vaccinations for those that are eligible, as I mentioned, this is the most responsive way to slow the transmission, and so we highly encourage vaccinations for our community. Again, we can't let up on the basics. We can't go back to the way that it is. We can't take things for granted. And so even some of the things that we've been reporting for 18, 19 months are still critically important. And the hand washing and using hand sanitizer is and will be very encouraged throughout the day, and those opportunities will be made available. There is no capacity limits in place anymore for how many students are in classrooms, but we're very fortunate to be in a school district that we have low class sizes, and that we're going to do what we can to keep students at least 3 feet apart in the classroom. So Dr. Hollander brought up a really good point, and it seems to be a point that is happening all over the country. And there's a difference between being in a corporate environment, being in a private school environment, and a public school district. And so when the question comes up about mandates for example, high school students, even though it's 12 or above are eligible, the question that Dr. Hollander had was about high school students. And at this time, public schools cannot mandate. Your local agencies cannot mandate vaccines for our students. This would be done at the state level. This would be something that the state would have to decide, and then we would then have to implement if the state makes that decision. But as a public school, public district, we cannot require the COVID-19 vaccine for our students. The other question that she had, which was a good one, is if not required for high school students, could we, is there a possibility for certain activities? If students are arriving for activities, could we then make vaccines required for those activities? For example, if somebody's a cheerleader, could that be required? And the answer is no. We still are not in a position. We're able to do that as a local organization. We cannot make attendance or participation as a condition of being having a mandated vaccine. And the last question that she had, and these are really good questions, and these are questions I'm getting when I'm out and about in the community, and that is, is there a way to have vaccinated students? And her question is more about classrooms and having those students that are not vaccinated either in another classroom or provided instruction in another way. And I will share with you that it's virtually impossible to be able to create a system in place for those students that are vaccinated and those that are not vaccinated. It would not be an equitable experience, and it would be almost impossible with the staffing that we had. So those are great questions, but I wanted to be able to provide that information to the community. Another topic that has come up again and again is the proposed California mathematics curriculum framework. And so I just want to address really quickly that this was a framework that was developed. It was released in January. There were many people throughout the state of California that had issues. Some people had issues with the entire framework, and there are other districts that had issues or concerns with just pieces of the framework. And so I want to let you know kind of where we are in this. And so there has been a lot of discussion, as you know, about this framework and not being in agreement that the State Board of Education is moving forward with another round of public preview and comments. As soon as we get that, I know Dustin Seaman will be one of the first people that will be notified when there is going to be another opportunity. But that is the next step. We will have an opportunity. The public in the state of California will have this opportunity to weigh in, and some changes will occur. And the Instructional Quality Commission, who is handling this framework, are going to allow the writers to make this change, and then it will be brought public again. I just want to make, just kind of hot off the presses, this is in an education journal, which is California School News. And there's some reassuring news in here as well. As you know, the board and the cabinet pushed back as well, because we did not want anyone to come in and limit the pathways that we have set up for our students in our school district. And so we're very reassured by some information in this journal that is something that we've stated before, is that they want to be very clear that the document is a guidance document, and it's a local decision as to the course offerings and the pathway options. The state isn't going to tell a district what's going to be in each course or when each course is offered, and it follows up with, moving forward, the writing team will make such revisions, including the reworking of some of the framework sections, and to be clear that the needs of the high-achieving students must be met alongside the specific guidance on how that can be accomplished in a classroom that serves students of all levels. So there's some reassuring news there, and I'm sure this is the result of a lot of feedback from people in the state of California. But I'm, again, thankful to our Board of Education and our leadership team who jumped on early, and we were able to provide our feedback directly to Governor Newsom about how many of the things in this particular framework just did not meet the needs of us in Beverly Hills Unified. And just finally, just to just give you some really good information about some of the progress that's happening in the district. And it's just every day there's the modernization, it's the updating, it's a refresh, and this is consistent with what we've been seeing throughout the summer. We can't wait for our students to get in there and see that our weight room refresh looks amazing and our branding looks amazing. And soon we're going to see facilities like this throughout our school district. The B1, B2 move for our teachers and our support staff. Here's a picture of our 4 administrators at the high school. And I was able to attend one of the orientations for teachers, because there's new security initiatives that come with the new buildings. And we're very excited to be able to, and we will have an open house soon. We'll have a ribbon cutting soon, but our staff is still moving into our facilities, and they're absolutely amazing. And I believe in a short time, we're going to have the nicest facilities in the country, and we're going to be so proud of what we have to offer. So that is happening as we speak. People are moving in and getting settled into really innovative and just really progressive space. And we're very, very excited about that. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Breggy.
You're welcome.
Let's see if there's any comments going around. Mr. Raymer, Any
I
comments?
did have some, a bit of a question or a suggestion regarding the temperature checks at the when you come into school every day. Just as we were talking about how we have the opportunity to refresh, this may already be going on, but I may want to suggest a higher frequency of recalibration of these temperature check machines, if that is an option and if that is available to be done easily, just because we want to make sure that we have the most accurate temperature measurement every day. So whether that be a monthly, weekly refresh, but I think that one before the start of this school year is extremely important, just to ensure that we continue with the standards that we had in place previously. If you'd like to respond to that now, then go for it. I also have something else I'd like to say after, though.
Sure. So, Braemar, I just want to assure you that that is done on a regular basis. Those machines are moved sometimes throughout the day, and so we always put that's part of the systems when it restarts back up again, that it goes through a very comprehensive recalibration.
Thank you very much. And I also wanted to say that I'm very excited both about the opening of B1 and B2, as it has been under construction since I entered the high school and since long before. So it is very exciting to be in the first senior class to be able to enter those buildings in quite some time. I would also like to say that those the weight room improvements, while I do not use them myself, I have many friends on both the football and wrestling teams and whatever other sports teams utilize the weight rooms on a regular basis, who are very much appreciative of the renovation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Stern?
No comments, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Margot?
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Wells?
I just wanted to say I think that the gym, the new weight room looks like it's going to be fantastic. And I asked a question during board questions about the funding for the equipment, and was reminded that the funding for the equipment was from savings from the 2021 budget. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit, Dr. Brady.
So, I mean, it's certainly from some of the savings that we had. Also, didn't BHAAA have a little bit to do with that? I think that there was some donation as well.
So yes, because of the COVID pandemic, the allocation for athletics to the high school was not fully utilized last year. So we had some money available that we didn't utilize, and we thought it's a good use of those athletic funds to go for this equipment. So we actually were able to use funds already allocated for athletics for this equipment. And we didn't really have to tap our benefactors, so they can give us money for other things related to athletics.
And then the only other comment I would have is that the that area was part of the work that was done as part of the swim gym, and that was funded by both the bond Measure BH as well as some general fund dollars. But the majority of that was through bond Measure BH. And I asked the question of when that was, those dollars were allocated to Measure BH. The BH dollars were allocated to the swim gym. And I just wanted to comment on that the majority of those dollars came out of Measure BH. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, Dr. Brady, thank you for that very comprehensive.
I have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tristan. Go ahead.
So just further to Mary's comment, I just want to be clear that the weight room expenses for the weight equipment, that was not added from Measure BH. That actually was all out of the athletics budget. And I'd like to give a shout out to Tim Ellis, because he really managed that entire thing from concept to design to production and delivery, which was just a massive, massive task on top of everything else that he does. So props to Tim Ellis for getting that done before the beginning of the school year. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Way that they could be presented in some kind of a format for the public so that if there's questions and then as they come up, you can keep adding them to this, like that question and answer section. That's always going to be, and especially like with Mrs. Hallander tonight. If there's some way we can do that, and I was wondering,
We can do that.
Mrs. Starkins, if that can't be something that can be ongoing, as questions arise, we add them to the question and answer, like a chat room of question and answers for the public and for the parents and so on. Just a thought.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think that having something that's available so that there's a place that we can redirect people as well. Information's always changing, and so if we can redirect people to one place, we have less likelihood of providing some misinformation, and we can update that information with each health order.
Yeah, I mean, we already have one piece of information we know we got just today, and we don't know how it's going to affect what we're talking
Exactly.
about.
Yeah, good point. Yes.
So, okay, thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
had one last question. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
With regard to the swim gym and the gym, the refurbishment, when I asked a question earlier about the funds coming out of BH, I didn't understand an answer about how it relates to Building C and the site work for BHHS. So maybe Dawn could comment on that.
I don't know if he's still on.
Oh.
I guess he's not there.
I'm working on it.
Oh, great.
Okay. So the question was about allocations for the swim gym in relation to C and the aquatic center.
Yeah, the other site work for BHHS.
There's no relationship.
Okay, and maybe I didn't understand the answer to my question.
Okay.
So when it says an accounting of the funds would be part of the identification of available funds for Building C and other site work for the high school site work.
So, Trustee Wells, as we look at the entire bond budget, as the CBOC looks at the entire bond budget, they periodically move monies from one project to another.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have to do that continuously through the end of the project. So that's what we're talking about.
Does that answer your question?
Right.
Okay.
So in effect, it's a reallocation of the funds.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Raymer, we are waiting for the student board report.
I do not have much to report as last week due to it being summer and students have not gotten to the back into school mood yet. But I will say that last week, or maybe yesterday actually, we had our first Link leader training for those high school students who decided to become part of Link Crew and help with the transition between 8th and 9th grade for our incoming 9th graders. From what I heard, it went very well, and we should see a very helpful and effective Link Crew this year. That's about it for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question for Eli.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Schumann.
Do you know if there are any plans for the sophomores that are coming to campus, a lot of them for the first time, since a lot of them didn't return in the spring when we were able to go back in person? Do you know if there's any kind of Link Crew type introduction that those kids are going to receive to kind of get them familiar with the campus and where their classes are?
At about halfway through this last year, we had something similar, which was more, rather than a full Link Crew experience, it was simply a campus tour. Not all of the incoming sophomore class attended, but a large chunk of them did. So I would say a large amount of them have a good knowledge of the campus. And we even had a lot of people return or come to this campus tour who didn't actually return to in-person learning. So it's not just those who did return. So we should see a pretty big chunk of the sophomore class having already have some knowledge about it. For those specific sophomores who did not return to campus, they may be able to lean on their peers who do know and who have been to campus before and we could also fold them in and add them to a linked group with a mentor if they desire and if they believe that it would be beneficial to their high school experience. But nothing is concretely in place at the moment specifically for the incoming sophomore class.
Thank you, Eli. I would love to see that for them. I think a lot of them just didn't get a chance to go to that walkthrough, so it could be great beginning of the year, so they're familiar too. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving along, as I would like a motion for item 10A, please.
I'll move to approve the agreement for employment of the superintendent.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. First by Mr. Margot, second by Mrs. Wells. Any questions or comments anybody wants to make on this? Questions, comments? Okay.
Full comment tonight. I'm really excited about this. I think this is just such a testament to the stability we've been able to build. It's one of the things that I know, Rochelle, you and I talked about a lot 2.5 years ago when we were running for these positions. But making sure that it's not a revolving door and that we're able to retain great leadership is part of the responsibility of the board. So I'm really thrilled to have this item on the agenda and to be able to support it.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to make a couple of comments. I wanted to make the comment that I wrote some notes down. Dr. Breggy is committed to ensuring that all our students have opportunity to reach their potential. He is dedicated and hardworking. He has instituted the 3-year strategic plan. He is what I believe is one of the most talented cabinets that he has, which surrounds him in being able to accomplish everything he does. I am thrilled that we have such a consistent and strong administration, and I'm glad that this has been, he has a 3-year contract, and we were able to do it before actually we should have done it a little bit sooner, but I know that he is going to be doing, and I'm very pleased that this is the first time in many years where I've been connected with the schools that I have seen such a strong and a consistent, it's just not changing. We've got a real, I feel so comfortable with it. So I just wanted to share that with you, Dr. Brady.
I wanted to make a
And
comment.
I'd like to call for the motion.
I think Ms. Wells
Yeah.
wanted to make
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
I too just wanted to say congratulations. I'm so happy to know that you're going to be here with us for the next 3 years, especially coming off of this incredible year that we've had and your wonderful leadership and building your really strong cabinet. And I really, really look forward to the next 3 years. And
Thank you.
it's really, just really wonderful. So
Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Mrs. Marcus, may I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to say that on behalf of the students and myself, Dr. Breggy has been very helpful and very available to the students. I know that from personal experience. If I've reached out to him, he's almost always offered a meeting in a very quick time span, which has been very helpful and I'm very thankful for. He's also been very helpful in my transition to being student board member and there to answer any questions I have. And I know he would do the same for any other student in our district. So I am looking forward to continue working with him and also continue to having him here for our district.
Thank you.
And I just want to quickly
Thanks,
add,
Okay, go ahead.
sorry that, Dr. Berge, you and I have had longer conversations up, more than anybody else up here. And we're finally seeing this glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel of where we want this district to be. And I'm just happy you're going to be around to continue the work of executing that vision that we've talked about for years, that continued to get stalwarted by the tunnels and the COVID and everything. But now, hopefully, well, even with masks on, we will get there. So
Thank you.
I have the theme to Welcome Back Cotter is in my head right now. I don't know why.
No high school student would understand that this.
But everybody in this room will,
Oh, yes.
and Eli can Google it real quickly.
Ask his parents.
That's right.
Dr.
you.
Stern, would you like to say a few words also?
Absolutely, I would. I think that Dr. Breggy is someone who, among all adults and kids in this community, and including his amazing cabinet and administration, he brings people together. There's also a stability, I would agree, that I think is very comforting. He's very reliable, and also I know, as someone has worked in a lot of schools, I just know that he is a good person for this position, and also he's someone who has, been a teacher and a principal, and I'm just happy to know that we have the continuity and we can look forward to another 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Thanks.
don't get,
Thank you.
look at, wow. Okay, I will call for the question now. Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Dr. Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Margot,
Yes.
Mrs. Wells,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman,
Yes.
and Mrs. Marcus is a yes. This is approved. 6-0. Thank you very much. I would call for a motion to reject the next item, please.
I'll call for a motion to reject claim number 594744.
A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Wells. Moved by Mr. Margot, seconded by Mrs. Wells. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, I will call for the question. Mr. Raymer
Yes.
and Mrs. Dr. Stern.
Yes.
Mr. Margot.
Yes.
Mrs. Wells.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along, I will call for a motion of 12A, please.
I'm going to do 11B. I'm going to do 11B first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 2 to the agreement with NASTAC for specialized armed security agent services.
All second?
Who did that? Second. Mrs. Walker-Schuman, thank you. Moved by Mr. Margot, seconded by Mrs. Walker-Schuman. Well, questions or discussion? Anybody?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, I have a couple questions and comments. When I looked at the amendment, I'm not sure if something's changed, but if I understand correctly, Dr. Brady, from the last breakdown you gave us for your plans with NASDAQ, that Hawthorne and Horseman would have one NASDAQ guard and then share a third. So what I'm seeing here is 2 for Hawthorne and 2 for Horseman.
So what came up in conversation was having 3 people would there could be opportunities where somebody was at the front area, the perimeter, and had to leave, and somebody wouldn't necessarily be there. For example, with CSEA, we've got in the morning we would have one person who's going to be helping and assisting during drop off. And so there could be an opportunity where somebody wouldn't be at the front. So in conversations with NASTEC, we discovered that it's more than breaks and lunches, that there could be an opportunity where somebody could have left the front area at kind of unmanned, so to speak. So there were some conversations about, and I know that this was a concern before, about 2 people being together. And so we had conversations with NASTEC at great length about ensuring that at no time is there ever going to be 2 people that are in the same place. We use Hawthorne, for example. I mean, our schools are long. They're like a city block long. And so using entrances, different gates, that they would ensure that people would be on completely opposite sides.
Great.
So this will be now, and my question is, that this will be in addition to, instead of 3 people, we're going to have 4, and it's going to be 2 and 2 at all times. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And has the budget been set up for that? Is that already part of the budget?
Yes. And so this has been a true collaboration. And so Ms. Roach has been involved as well as far as the budgeting perspective.
Okay, so I have another
Sure.
question, and it's really has to do with the contract that we're amending. And originally we approved the contract on March the 3rd, right before we were opening for the pandemic, and I raised issue with questions that I had with regard to the contract itself. And we talked then about, before we would renew the contract for the full calendar year, that we would review the contract. And since that time, we amended the contract shortly thereafter to accommodate for middle school and high school when we reopened. And now we're seeing another amendment which is for the full calendar year. And I still have some questions with regard to the actual contract itself. And one of those questions is in the contract, it references that there's a contract administrator who will be overseeing the contract. And I would like to know who that contract administrator is.
So technically, that person would be Mr. Roach, but it's kind of a full circle collaboration. We do have. I'm involved in those discussions, as well as Mr. Blake, as we're pulling the security program together. That there needs to be a full collaboration, but it's school district and also our security program.
Why do we have the invoices going directly to Mr. Blake as opposed to the district?
I think it's shifted over time. So I think that there were more than I'm on those invoices. I know that Mr. Blake's on those invoices, but I believe that Mr. Roach is on them as well. And if he's not, I always send them to him.
I'm just going off the language of the contract. So the contract says that the invoices should be sent to Don Blake. And so my question is, are we paying administrative fees for this contract out of Measure BH? And just want to verify that we are making certain that any of the fees for this are being paid for out of our general fund and not out of Measure BH.
Yeah,
since
that
NASTEC
I
is
can assure you
really
of.
a general fund.
Oh yeah, that
cost.
I can assure you of. It is our general fund.
Okay, and then I would suggest making that change in that contract, that it would be, that those invoices would be going to the district, because it makes it look as though we are passing it through the bond program, as opposed to paying it directly through the district. And so then my next question would have been is the amount of the contract under the bond management program, even though you're paying it through the general fund?
It's through the general fund.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's not a fee that's put on.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So I think it would be in everyone's best interest if we change that language, just because I think it gives a look of as though this is running through the bond program, since the invoices are going that way, and it doesn't identify who the contract administrator is. And so I think it would be much better for everyone if we had that clarified.
She raises a very good point.
So I don't know if we would, I would suggest that we table this for now and make those changes, or we can discuss, or we do an amendment at the same time.
So I would recommend that we move forward with this, because we have school is starting very soon, and so we're having some changes in our security, and so we're bringing them back a couple days earlier. So we want to make sure that we have this in place.
And I can appreciate that, and this was the same similar position that we were in March when we approved the contract, is that we had a timing issue where we needed to approve it right away, and we made that decision at that time that we would then review the contract again before we amended it for a full year contract. So I
don't think there's anything that prevents us, after we approve this tonight, from amending those corrections in the billing area and all that to put them more in line with what practice is. So we can easily do that.
We can make those amendments.
Yeah.
And make those changes. I think she brings up a very good point. And the fact that she's been has asked about it and before. So I'm just wondering that, just to make those changes so that the billing is the way it's supposed to go to the district instead of to Don Blake, just for those purposes, I think. But I do think that she brings up an interesting point about that it says that in the contract, or does the wording in the contract, is it specific enough? And maybe we need to revisit that, and possibly could revisit that when we're doing the security study session that we're going to have, just to look and see if that's the wording, that's the way it should be.
But which wording are you referring to?
Beg pardon?
About where the invoices go? Which wording are you referring to? I'm sorry.
The wording of the who gets the bills, the invoices.
It says clearly in the contract it should be submitted to
To the
Don Blake's
district?
attention. Well, it says the district to Don Blake's attention.
And those are amendments that we can make.
issue that has come up in the processing of these bills? I kind of feel like this is a solution looking for a problem. Is there, I mean, has there a bill ever not been paid? Has it ever not made its way to the business office? I mean, does it not go to the business office a copy?
No, it does.
The question is why is it going through facilities and planning?
Well, I think the answer, it seems to me anyway, that security is very tightly wrapped with facilities and planning.
And I do get them. So I'm on every invoice that is sent to Mr. Blake and myself. And
But either way, I agree. If it's something we want to clean up, we can do that at another time. I think we've got a training day coming up on Friday.
The 30th,
if I'm not
I think.
mistaken. So I think it's essential to make sure that we have this in place so that we make sure that not only the training is done, but the security staff is back while teachers and staff return to the campus and as our students come back for their distribution days.
I don't argue with that. I think that's important.
Yeah, we can approve this and along with direction to Dr. Reggie to clean up the language with the financial office. And they could just bring that back and we'll clean it up.
we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so any other discussion, comments? Okay, I'll call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes. But remember, we've made some provisions on that there. Okay. Moving right along, now we go to 12A. I'd like an motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement with Layton for geotechnical services for the high school southwestern baseball fields, aquatic center, and retaining wall project.
And I need a second. Mrs. Walker-Schuman, are you the second?
I am.
Thank you. Moved by Mr. Margot, seconded by Mrs. Walker-Schuman. Any discussion, any comments, clarification?
Yeah, I've got some questions, and I will apologize in advance. I'm at camp right now, and it just ended, so there may be some background noise from outside the building that I'm in, so I'll ask you to excuse that. But I do have some questions. I just wanted to clarify, does this amendment allow for the start of construction on the retaining wall as well as the initial geological testing required, or just the initial geological testing?
That's a amazingly astute question. No, this has to do with borings to complete the geo information as well as lab testing for conditions of the soil. So it's purely an engineering function prior to completing the drawings for the retaining walls, which will be at DSA.
Thank you for the clarification. I was also curious. So this is approving the testing for sections C 501 and 502. I imagine there will be future amendments to approve testing for 201 through 302. Is there a timeline as to when we could see that amendment show up, or is that conditional on how long it takes for 501 and 502?
Well, it's conditional based on the completed. The architect does the drawings complete layout, and then the borings are done by, mostly if there's a structure involved. For most of the areas that you're mentioning won't have a structure per se. And so the borings aren't related to a soils test criteria that is given to the structural engineer. So the soils analysis and the structural analysis are aligned. Most of the borings that we'll see coming in the future will have to do with a requirement from DTSC, which we do routinely throughout the property.
Thank you. And my final question is, why is the extension of the retaining wall a necessity currently? are there retaining walls currently in place, and is this a revamp or surface of those retaining walls, or is this a building of a completely new wall that wasn't there previously?
It's a completely new wall that will run approximately, if you're familiar with the Veneco site, I don't know if everyone is, but where the oil well and the big derrick used to be. Well, the retaining wall will run along Olympic, along Heath, and up around to the backside of Building C. So it's quite long, and the median height is about 28 feet. So it's a pretty significant retaining wall.
What is the exact purpose of this retaining wall, and how why is it a necessity now if we've gotten by without it in the past?
Well, the elevations from where Heath is, for example, to the elevation where Building C of the swim gym, the topography somewhere has to have a break. And so from a design standpoint, the choice is to break it where it has the least impact in terms of cost, but also accommodates the baseball field. We needed to create more space, or as much space as possible, for the two planned baseball fields. So the retaining wall just is set back close to Heath. But the answer to the question is basically the topography of the site, one way or the other, requires a 28-foot change in that topography. There's not enough real estate to have a slope. It requires a retaining wall to make that cut.
All right, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Raymer. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I will call for the question. Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Dr. Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Margot,
Yes.
Mrs. Wells,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman,
Yes.
and Mrs. Marcus is a yes, and we'll pass 6-0. Thank you. 12B, motion.
I'll move approval of the engagement letter with Mosley v. Harston LLP to provide audit services for fiscal year 2021 bond financial audits for Measure E and BH for 2020-2021.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion made by Mrs. Walker-Schuman, seconded by Mr. Margot. Discussion, questions, starting with Mr. Raymer. Any questions?
None.
Thank you. Dr. Stern?
None.
Mr. Margot?
None.
Mrs. Wells?
I just had a request or comment that the CBOC has an opportunity to see the scope for what the financial audit will be for Measure E and BH, and to ask if they have any input for the scope of the audit, since they depend so heavily on the financial audit to do their duty.
Any comments or questions?
I'm confused. This is a finance committee thing, the audit. This is a finance audit.
It's an audit of Measure E and Measure BH, which is what the CBOC reports on.
Right, so they would see the report, but why would they be part of defining the scope? We already approved the scope when we approved the budget for this, the additional, I think it was $25,000 if I'm not mistaken. And the finance committee is the one that actually gives us financial recommendations based on their evaluation of the information.
So the finance committee oversees, reviews the finances for Measure E and BH. I want to confirm that.
Well, they oversee all of the finances for the district in any places where it exists.
Including Measure E and BH.
In an advisory role, of course. I mean, CBOC is looking in the rearview mirror at what has already been spent and allocated and how that whole program has moved forward. So it makes sense that they would see the report, but I think defining the scope is something that we've already done, and I think that's something that the finance committee ought to weigh in on.
I don't disagree with you in that regard. However, not unlike with the performance audit, the CBOC had a request in terms of how the audit was being done to further allow them to evaluate. And I don't think that it hurts to ask them for their input, since they report on the audit, and the audit is happening after it's in the rearview mirror. So I'm sorry. So I'm just suggesting that you do ask the CBOC if they had any comments or input based on the fact that they just completed their report
I
based on that.
understand what Mrs. Wells is asking for. I think what she's trying to say is that is I mean, it's after the past. I mean, it's a year behind, but she's asking that if the CBOC can have some input into the scope of the audit, so that what they need in order to do their work. And that I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I'm
Have
not
we been-
suggesting that they define the scope. I'm suggesting that you ask them if they had any input. They may have some nuance that they might want to look at. And it's
all.
just simply a courtesy since they rely so heavily
Have-
on
have-
the finance audit report
Have
to
we
do
been
their
out
job.
of? I'm sorry. Have we been out of compliance? Wait, I'm sorry, Tristan. Have we been out of compliance with the contents of our audits?
We have not.
No.
Okay, so I'm confused then in what we're
Well, I
asking.
think
It's a courtesy to ask them if they had any,
I
Yeah,
think
but the
that
audits are
CBOC
required
had
by
asked.
law.
I think
and
the
so is the
CBOC had
CBOC
asked.
report.
Right, but the audits are required by law. We're following
Right.
state law on this. So I'm not sure the
Well, the
role
scope of the audit, I think
CBOC
that there's-
receives the audit and reviews the audits.
Correct.
Right. So the auditors are the ones that define the scope as per state law.
But
That's
it's as
true.
a courtesy to the CBOC. I understand what Mrs. Wells is asking. I don't think it's unreasonable that if the CBOC has asked the audit committee or whatever, that there's something that they would like to see in it, that would be an unreasonable request. That's all I think that Mrs. Wells is
I
pointing out.
think that would have been in their report. They just gave us their report. It didn't say in there that they had specific requests from this audit, and we had approved this based on their request. So if there was something specific they were looking for, would that not have been in their report? They gave us recommendations for going forward for their next report.
I thought we were approving it now.
No, this is
We're
an
not approving a
engagement.
report. We're just engaging.
No,
we're just
we're
engaging-
engaging them to do next year's this next
The next
fiscal
fiscal,
audit.
right.
And within that is the scope. Am I not correct on that, Wade?
Well, I think that we can ask the CBOC to make a request for if there's something that they would like to see.
But it shouldn't be our job to ask the CBOC to do anything. They're supposed to be independent of us.
Well, but
It was a
evidently
courtesy.
Why would we
to
influence
ask
an
for input.
outside
Wade, would you like
committee?
to comment?
Yes, sir.
I'm just
President Marcus, members of the board, there's a little bit of confusion in the discussion. Maybe I can add some clarity.
okay.
So Hadley, the financial auditor, he does regularly go to CBOC meetings and talks about the audit, the financial audit. So he's there, and they know him, and he talks about the audit. But the financial audit is different than a performance audit. The performance audit, you have the ability to change the scope, to ask for additional things. In a financial audit, that's driven by state guidelines. So it's a different kind of audit. You don't necessarily ask the auditor to change the scope of a financial audit. It's driven by the state.
Right.
Now, the auditor will come and interview people in the district and say, are there concerns? Do you want us to look into anything? But that's done on an individual level. They'll come to the superintendent or to myself and say, are there concerns? And we can look into it. But there's no general discussion of scope in a financial audit.
And maybe I said it incorrectly. What I meant is that in the same way, to check in with the CBOC to see if they had any concerns.
And Hadley does come to those meetings.
That's what I'm referencing.
Right.
Okay. Any questions on that now? No?
I do have one clarifying question. Mr. Roach may be able to answer this better, but he was talking about how the auditors will come in and interview individual district personnel on any concerns. Is it possible to have them interview individual members of the CBOC if they have any individual concerns, not as a unit, but as an individual person on that committee, as someone who does review the audit?
You're shaking your head, yes?
So we can check with Hadley and see if that's a process that he engages. The CBOC is independent from the district, as the board knows, but we can check with Hadley. They, like I said earlier, they have a strict set of guidelines that they follow, and generally when they do a financial audit, because in the end the CBOC is not necessarily legally and fiscally responsible for those bonds and those audits. The board is. So, just so that there's some clarity around that. The board is actually, in the end, the buck stops with the board. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
anything else? Okay, call for the question, Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Dr. Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Margot,
Yes.
Mrs. Wells,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes, it passes, by 6-0. Okay,
I'll make a motion for the approval of the amendment to the Independent Study Board Policy BP 6158 and Administrative Regulation 6158 for the 2021-2022 school year to meet the requirements of AB 130.
I'll second.
who said that? Mrs. Wells? Thank you, Mr. Margot. Motion, Mrs. Wells the second. Any comments or questions, concerns about this? Starting with you, Mr. Raymer.
None.
Thank you, Dr. Stern.
Yes, I just want to say that I do think that the premise behind AB 130, which, if I'm understanding it correctly, is an effort by the state, the government, to have some means of independent study given COVID, given medical conditions and all that. I just want to say, though, that I do feel we want to continue as much as possible to understand that schooling done in person, when possible, feasible, and safe, is perhaps our best notion developmentally for children, and I don't want to depart too much from that. However, I'm glad that there is a provision such as AB 130 as needed. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Mr. Margot?
No.
Mrs. Wells?
I echo the sentiments of Dr. Stern.
And Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
No, I'm good.
I would just like to hope that this is only a one-year deal and that hopefully we won't have to visit this next year. That would be that we will be out of the woods and this will be something that is put to rest. So I will call for the question.
Mrs. Marcus?
Oh, I'm sorry,
having
Mr. Ray.
heard the comments from my fellow board members, may I also comment?
Yes, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I would also like to very much agree with Dr. Stern and Mrs. Wells because not from personal experience exactly, but from experience from friends of mine who participated in the ILC this past year, they were definitely missing that in-person connection. And I think that it is definitely a much better way to learn when possible and when safe. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I left you out there. Thank you. Okay, so we will now call for the question. Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Dr. Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Margot,
Yes.
Mrs. Wells,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that is a 6-0 vote. Thank you very much. And that takes us now to the communications from the board members. I would like to start with you, Mr. Raymer, if you have any comments or things you want to say.
Very quickly, I did want to say hello to Dr. Stern because I know we did not get to meet at my first meeting, and I'm looking forward to meeting you once I am also back in person. I also did want to say that tomorrow is National Milk Chocolate Day. While I do prefer dark chocolate, we must pay homage to all forms of chocolate, so please feel free to partake of some tomorrow. In observance of this of National Milk Chocolate Day. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that important piece of information. Well noted. Dr. Stern, any comments for the board tonight?
I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Margot.
Thank you, Eli. I wasn't going to eat my Hershey bar tomorrow, but now I am. Just remind everybody to stay healthy, enjoy the rest of your summer. I want to thank our KBEV crew tonight. We often forget, but we always do appreciate you all being here. So enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll see you on the cusp of starting school.
Mrs. Wells?
I just wanted to make a comment about our legal contracts. We are in the process of reviewing legal contracts right now, and it was pulled from the agenda. But I wanted to comment more about the process about our legal services. And through this process, I've been reviewing our legal fees. And I really feel that this is somewhat of a blind spot for all of us. And I think we can do better in terms of how we engage our legal services and for what services they are doing, and to really evaluate the effectiveness of that and whether or not we need legal services for certain activities, or if it can be provided for by others, so that we are more judicious with how we spend our dollars on our legal fees. And I really do appeal to Dr. Bragi and his cabinet, as well as my fellow board members, because I do feel we need to have a better clarification on how that process works. And I look forward to improving it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a brief, oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Oh, thank you. So I, you know, at the beginning of the meeting, we pulled something off of the PO report, and I just want to be on the record saying that I am not entirely sure that that actually has no impact. We spent a lot of time talking about how to make our campus safe. We've talked about perimeter security. We've talked about access control. We've talked about, you know, the command and control center and making sure that we're actually taking advantage of the things that we've already committed to and invested in. And I'd like to make sure that this is not something that gets put on the back burner and ends up changing what we start the school year with. I think that securing our campus is a 24/7, 365 effort. And I just want to make sure that this action didn't actually compromise the rollout of our safety plan and our security plan between now and whenever we end up having this meeting that we've had to schedule and reschedule for a variety of reasons. So I just want to be on record saying that. I think it would be a real shame, after all of the effort and time we've put into developing this plan, to start the year without some components of it. So that's that comment. I will also say thank you to our teachers and our staff that have worked so hard over the summer to execute their move into the new buildings and to plan to prepare. This, obviously, for a year and a half, we've been in a completely strange, difficult, challenging environment, and you know, here we are about to start the next round. So thank you for your patience. I hope you had a restful summer. I hope you got to travel a little bit, stayed safe. If you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated, and we look forward to seeing everyone back at school healthy and ready to go. That's all.
Thank you. Just a brief, I attended the Los Angeles County Trustees Association meeting, the monthly meeting last night. The topic was and discussion dealt with the use of outdoor space to support education. And of course, this has become very big issue since the pandemic, and the use of the environmental literacy has been able to many people have been able to transform their playgrounds into outdoor classrooms and increase the importance of the space that they have. Many schools have changed the infrastructure of the areas and even have been able to use some COVID funds to make these playgrounds look very inviting. But for the most part, most of the playgrounds that we see are nothing but asphalt and not very inviting. And they were talking about that. The studies do show that the outdoor education and the use of the outdoor space reduces stress, it improves mental health, leads to a healthier environment, and academic improvement. One drawback to the outdoor ed is, of course, the weather, which is not really a problem in California, but can be a problem in other parts of the country. There were 3 presenters. One was a CEO of something called Green Schoolyards. There was an associate professor of landscape architecture, and there was a CEO of something called 10 Strands who made the presentation. And it was interesting, and I'm hoping that some of our teachers will start to avail themselves of some outdoor education to get the kids outside into the living environment. And I guess the last comment I'd like to make is that I'm thrilled that the contract with Dr. Bragi has been signed, and we are going to be at least restful for the next 3 years. And though I may not be on the board at that time, I leave the board knowing that it's going to be in good hands, and the school district. So I thank you, And I'm going to adjourn the meeting if there's no further comments at 6:29. And please have a very wonderful vacation, what's left of it. Thank you very much.